good afternoon, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for our talk today on the wonder plant that is seagrass for this Cardiff Science Festival. Today, we're going to talk to you about seagrass, and hopefully you'll come away with a couple of new facts and cool things. So, Evie, can you tell me about how you ended up in marine biology and why you're now studying seagrass?
So, hi, I'm Evie Furness. I'm a marine researcher with Swansea University and Project Seagrass. And how I found out about this really cool plant seagrass was, well, let's take a step right the way back. I was leaving school and I had a place to go and study maths, and I thought that was okay, but I kind of delayed it because who really wants to go and study maths? And instead, first I learnt to scuba dive, and I did this by putting on 3 wetsuits because it was freezing cold in the UK in a murky quarry underneath Heathrow Airport. I went underwater for the first time, was breathing underwater. That's pretty cool in itself. And the murk really set in, so I took my buddy's hand and I looked across to their hand and realised that all I could see of them was their hand. And I just thought, wow, this is so bizarre and so unreal and so cool. I've got to do more of this and learn more about it. So I was instantly hooked on marine biology and scrapped the maths degree, studied marine biology at Swansea University, discovered seagrass, and never looked back.
Oh, wow.
What about you, Emma?
So I think I was inspired, like many of us, by the David Attenborough BBC documentaries, and I just loved them so much, and I wanted to be the person behind the camera and in the ocean filming the whales. So I tried my best. I did biology at university, and then I did a master's in marine systems and policy. And then, I did a little bit of work with dolphins and whales, and then I somehow ended up looking after seagrass, which I didn't even know about until I ended up with Project Seagrass. So that's how I've ended up here. But why, Evie? Why is seagrass so cool?
Okay, so first off, I think there's probably quite a few people that are like, what is seagrass? So super simple, it's grass that lives under the sea. So if everyone that's watching along with us can just shut your eyes for a moment and imagine that there are these beautiful blades of long, thick green grass swaying around in front of you. And then instead of being laid in the grass in your garden or in a park, you're actually underwater. These plants are growing underwater, this luscious green meadow. You start looking around and you look to your left, there's this whole shoal of fish swimming past, darting around. Down to the bottom, and there's a flatfish scurrying along. Maybe up in front, there's a dolphin that's come in to feed on all this amazing life that's living and sheltering in the seagrass, because it's this incredible place for all these fish to live. Let's head back to the surface. We'll come out and everyone stop and take 3 deep breaths. So 1, and 2, and 3. So you can all open your eyes again, and out of those 3 breaths, 2 of them will have come from the ocean. The ocean is providing 70% of the oxygen we breathe. So 70% of those 3 breaths will have been helped by seagrass. Because seagrass, being a plant, it's got its roots, it's got its leaves, it's got its beautiful underwater flowers, just like those out in the garden. But instead, underwater, it's taking in light for photosynthesis, it's taking in carbon dioxide, so it's helping fight climate change. It's mixing those up to make its food and grow healthy and strong, and it's letting out oxygen for us to breathe. So we've heard that seagrass is an amazing habitat for so many different types of sea creatures. It's helping us breathe, it's helping fight climate change, and that's just the beginning of the wonderful things that seagrass does for us. It also helps protect our coastlines from coastal erosion. It helps clean our waters and gives us amazing places to go and explore and be at peace with the oceans. But there's a little bit of a problem going on with our seagrass at the moment. And I'm hoping you could tell us a little bit more about what's going on right here, right now.
Yeah, so sadly, our seagrass is disappearing, and it's disappearing fast. So globally, we've lost 92% of seagrass, which is significant. And so basically, Project Seagrass, we're trying to bring it back. So what is the reason for this decline? Why is our seagrass disappearing? Well, sadly, it's lots of human reasons, so anthropogenic causes. So one of the big things that's happening at the moment, and we're actually going through it right now, is extreme weather. So storms, such as the one we're experiencing, is causing our oceans to be far more extreme and rough, with great big rolling waves. And this sort of ocean action is causing our meadows to be destroyed. And so with climate change and extreme weather events happening increasingly more frequently, this environment that is ideal for seagrass, which is hopefully like a sheltered kind of bay, lovely and calm, these environments are no longer there. So the seagrass is getting ripped out of the ocean. And then another reason that storms are damaging seagrass is because of all the flood water that's coming from land and going into the ocean. It's bringing everything from land straight into the ocean. And what we have is lots of nutrients from our industries. So our factories and stuff are outputting lots of nutrients into our land. And then also our farms. So everything that we spray onto our farms and that are coming from our animals are basically running off in the water from storms and going straight into our oceans. And the reasons that nutrients is bad is it causes something called eutrophication, which causes an algal bloom. So if there's excess nutrients in the water, it's going to allow things like seaweed to start growing too much. And if there's too much seaweed and the other types of algae in the water, it's going to smother our seagrass and prevent it from getting light and all the other important things that it really needs. So our optimum conditions for our seagrass to grow are rapidly disappearing because of climate change. And then another factor that's causing our seagrass to disappear is because of boats. So boats can impact our seagrass in multiple ways. Propellers on the back can cause physical damage. And if our leaves are damaged, that's all right, because the leaves can grow back. But sadly, if the roots, if they're damaged, and we leave like boat scars through our meadows, then our seagrass is unlikely to be able to regrow. And then it causes a fragmentation of our meadows. And as soon as this starts to happen, it sort of multiplies itself and causes further loss of the seagrass meadow. So these are a couple of things that are threatening our meadows. And it's really important when we try and bring seagrass back. So what are we doing in order to bring back seagrass?
Well, we're doing some pretty great things right here in Project Seagrass. We are putting on some scuba diving gear. So we're masking up, we're swimming to the bottom of the ocean, and we're going to healthy seagrass meadows, those few pockets where they're still doing really well. And we're hand collecting seagrass seeds, which are like these little, like a little pod of peas on the end of a leaf, on a long thin leaf. We're taking all those seagrass seeds and we're taking them back to our lab at Swansea, where we're filling a big vat, a big water tank full of seagrass seeds, and we're leaving them to slowly rot down. And if you smell like rotting egg and, can you think of any good ways to describe rotting seagrass?
Say like sulfur.
All those bad smells, that's what's going on. So we're not very popular in Swansea Uni when that part of our process is going on. But we do this because the seagrass, the actual plant material, that all rots down and it floats to the top of our tanks. And the seeds then drop out and they naturally sink to the bottom of our tanks because they naturally want to sink to the seabed. This means we can then scoop away all that nasty rotting material, stop the smell, and we can take all the nice clean seeds from the bottom. We then take these seeds and we pop them into small little biodegradable bags. These just protect the seeds and keep them in one place because at the bottom of the ocean, we've got a lot of shore crabs in the UK that absolutely love to feast on seagrass seeds. So a little bag just to keep the shore crabs at bay. And then we take the bags in winter out and we swim back down to the bottom of the ocean in a spot where we think the seagrass is going to really grow and thrive. And we replant it here. So here at Project Seagrass, we've got loads of restoration projects going on and we're super exciting at the moment. We've got 2 in Wales, we've got 2 in England, we've got 2 in Scotland, and we're always keen to keep supporting more and more and keep it going. But that's just what we're doing here in Swansea. Is there any things that people watching along at home could do to maybe help out?
Yeah, definitely. So you might think that being inside your home or in a city that you have no impact on the ocean, but in fact we all have an impact on the ocean. It's very direct. So you can help from your very own home to look after seagrass. So going back to all that stuff that I was talking about, like nutrients and whatever other like pesticides and poisons and pollutions are going straight to our ocean, we've got to think about what we're putting down our kitchen sink. So if we're pouring bleach, and that is directly going to end up going into our ocean at some point. So if we're trying to find better alternatives, that'd be amazing. So going and finding some like eco-friendly alternatives and pouring that down instead. So in just as an example of how direct our impact is, we do actually have a very, very small patch of seagrass out in Cardiff Bay. I wouldn't recommend going to look for it because it's not in the nicest of locations. And sadly, this seagrass patch used to be a lot larger and it's now like only 1 metre by metre square. And it's looking very sad. And so we really need people in Cardiff to try and think about what we're putting into our water in order to help look after this little patch of seagrass that is there. What else can you do? So climate change, we've all heard of climate change, and we've probably heard of a couple of ways in which we can help reduce our own impact. So trying to reduce the amount of carbon dioxide that's going into the atmosphere would be an amazing start. So thinking about changing from driving as much to cycling a little bit. And then obviously, because we're an ocean conservation charity, we see a lot of plastic pollution in the ocean, which itself is another threat to seagrass. So reducing those single-use plastics and switching them for alternatives, recycling as much as possible, those are also fantastic ways of helping our seagrass. But one of the biggest threats to seagrass is the fact that no one knows about it. So because awareness isn't there, people don't know, so we can't look after it. And we don't actually know where all our seagrass is around the UK. So you guys can directly help us by when you go to the beach and you go snorkeling or you go surfing, if you yourself spot seagrass, then this is a fantastic opportunity for you to become a citizen scientist and download an app called Seagrass Spotter, so it's easy to remember, onto your phone. Take a photo of that patch of seagrass, which you're likely to see when the tide goes out. So when there's low tide, seagrass is often exposed, and you can take a really easy photo of that seagrass and upload it onto the map. And slowly, with your help, we at Project Seagrass can start to form an idea of just how much seagrass there is left. So spreading that awareness and letting people know what seagrass is and where it is one of the biggest things that you guys can do to help us save seagrass, basically.
Yeah, it'd be really awesome to get loads more seagrass spotters going on and finding seagrass all over the place. So our app isn't just restricted to the UK. We're actually looking at seagrass on a global scale because seagrass can live in nearly every continent. So all over the place, it's so understudied, and a huge barrier for scientists to be able to protect and look after it is not knowing where it is. There's also lots of stuff you can do if you head to the Project Seagrass website or follow us on social media. We're on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram. Then you'll see volunteer opportunities come up. You'll see other top tips on how you at home can help with seagrass. Or you can check out some education resources that we've got going on there.
Yeah.
Or you can even sponsor a bag if you feel like planting one little bag of seagrass yourself.
Yeah. So that's us telling you a little about seagrass, but we want to hear what questions you have. So if you'd like to type in any questions to the panel, which I think you guys can see, then we ought to be able to answer them for you. So if you've got questions not just about seagrass, but marine biology and how you can get into marine biology and what we're doing around Wales, then go for it. This is your 15-minute opportunity to do just that. But have we got any questions to ask each other whilst we're waiting?
What do you think your favourite moment in a seagrass meadow has been?
I think, well, seagrass is just mesmerising. So when you're snorkeling over it, it is like you're going over a beautiful like flower meadow. So you've got all the anemones, such as snake locks, which are kind of like green and purple coloured, and they're attached to all the seagrass like fronds and leaves. So when you're going over it, you can then maybe see a pipefish or crabs or flatfish like scooting away from you, and it's so relaxing. It's like meditating while snorkeling because everything is slowly wafting and you're seeing all these beautiful colours, and it's just addictive. So once you start seeing seagrass and you know where it is, I'd really recommend it. So every time I see it, it's my favourite time. It's my favourite moment because I love it that much.
It's such a peaceful place to be. And if you've not been in a seagrass meadow, then get out and try and find some. So seagrass, we've got a question through from Sansa. So seagrass is just like grass in your garden. So those long, thin green blades, but we can get even longer in the UK. Unfortunately, we don't have a picture right here, right now, but if you get on our website or on our social media, then that's a nice way to picture it. And if you head to Seagrass Spotter, there's actually an interactive map on there that people can use to find where their closest seagrass meadow is. So then you can head to the beach if you've got a meadow close by and are fortunate enough, and go and have a look and explore for yourself, because you won't regret it, promise.
Yeah. Well, so an important distinction when we're talking about when we're spotting seagrass is to make that it's not seaweed. So seaweed is a type of algae, and there is a type of seaweed that looks quite similar to seagrass, and it's kind of, that green stringy seaweed that you find. It's called gutweed, I think. And you'll find it sort of at the high tide mark over like rocks and stuff, and it looks stringy and green, but that isn't seagrass. So seagrass absolutely has roots that are underneath the sand and substrate. So it could be in mud, in like a bay or a harbour, when it's a bit more muddy. And then it's kind of like, it's proper leafy. You can see the like cells, the plant cells that are going up it, and it can be, about 50 centimetres tall. And sometimes it can have flowers on it, so you can spot out for those, look out for those. So it's just not seaweed. It's the important thing there. Seaweed. Oh, that's a really good question.
I feel like you should take this after you.
So yes, they can definitely live in the same environment. In fact, so seaweeds, it can be a type of algae, so it's often quite healthy to find like a small covering of algae on top of seagrass. So we call this epiphytes. And that's good for the environment, because if there's lots of different things living in the environment, so the ecosystem is obviously very biodiverse and healthy, but then it's just whether there are excess nutrients. So if you think about it, seagrass and seaweed are often competing in an environment. And if they're competing healthily, then they'll both be able to thrive there. But if one of them is able to overcompete and outcompete, and in our case, it's bad if the seaweed does this, then that's when our seagrasses are going to lose out and slowly die away. So that's when the excess nutrients are coming from land. And because our seagrass is getting all its nutrients from the soil or the sand, from its roots, it means that's its advantage. Whereas okay, sorry, I've just had a little note, but I'm going to keep chatting if that's all right. So it's seagrass gets all its nutrients from the soil, whereas seaweeds get all its nutrients they absorb directly from water. So that's why if seaweed outcompetes when all the nutrients are in the water, because they're directly getting it, and so it's advantageous to the seaweed in that instance. Does that make sense? I hope that was clear.
No, I think you did well.
Okay, all right. The person managing our talk might have to leave, so we'll make sure that we can manage this ourselves. I think we can manage ourselves. Are there any more questions? Aha. Oh, we've got loads now.
Loads.
Okay, right. So, is seagrass poisonous? The bottom question I've just seen.
No, seagrass is not poisonous. In fact, in some cultures, they even take the seeds and they grind them down to make this like seagrass porridge. But after having smelt the process of like rotting down the plant material to get the seeds out, I'm not sure why people choose to eat it. I don't know about you.
No. In fact, there is a farm in Spain that is looking at growing seagrass, and we spoke about these seeds earlier, looking like peas in a pod, and they're looking at taking the seeds and potentially producing rice out of them. So maybe there is potential for that in the future. But no, not poisonous.
We've got another good one from Cherry, who asks, do turtles like seagrass? Oh, sorry, it's actually from Dan. Well, Dan, yeah, turtles love seagrass. So an average adult green turtle will actually munch through 2.5 kilos of seagrass every day, which doesn't sound like an awful lot, but if you go to your cupboard and pick up like a large bag of flour, a couple of large bags of flour, you're going to get to about and feel how heavy 2 kilos is. And then imagine picking some blades of grass from your garden and how many blades of grass you'd have to pick to make the same weight. I think that's a lot of seagrass to eat in one day. Turtles love it.
Does seagrass wash up on shores? So yeah, it does. If you go somewhere where there's a really healthy seagrass meadow, then when all the waves are lapping in, just like you'll see like leaves, if they've fallen into the sea, they'll be brought in. You'll see all the seagrass blades that have fallen off or slightly decaying or somehow ended up floating away from the seagrass meadow, and they'll be rolling in with the waves. And that's a really good indicator that there might be seagrass in the bay somewhere, because you'll see these like long seagrass leaves. So a couple of places it might be good to look out for is, I don't know if people know Studland Bay or Swanage area. Often when waves are lapping in, they're bringing in bits of seagrass. Or where else is a good place?
So if you're up in North Wales, there's a really beautiful meadow called Porth Clyne. That's a really nice spot to go to. On the whole washing in, that's also something that can go on Seagrass Spotter. So if you spot some seagrass that's washed up on the beach, you can still take a photo of that and just put a comment that it's washed up rather than planted and growing.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah,
That's really interesting. I'm glad you said that. Is seagrass farming a possibility for the future? Well, I'm glad you asked this, because we are the first charity or organisation in the UK who are at the moment building our own polytunnel, which we are going to use as a seagrass nursery. Is that the right word?
Yeah, absolutely.
So we're going to be growing our very own seagrass. So in terms of farming, I don't know what sort of scale it'd be at, but the point is for us, we want to be able to ramp up our restoration abilities, and so we need to be able to produce more seeds, enable for us to then plant at a later point, because at the moment we're hand picking them, which takes an awful lot of time, and we also need to do it on the ideal tide times, and sometimes those could be like 3 a.m. in the morning, so it's tough. So if we can farm seagrass and grow our own very own seagrass, then we're going to be able to do it on a much bigger scale, and hopefully we're hoping to restore, is it 30 kilometres? 30 hectares of seagrass around the UK coastline by 2050. So with this goal and our polytunnel that is currently being built, that's definitely, hopefully, on the way.
So is there several species of seagrass or just one? There is actually loads. So I think the current estimate is around 72 species of seagrass globally, but for here in the UK we just have 2 species. We've got Zoster Mariner, which is this really like skinny little one that will be a lot more intertidal, so when the sea goes out it will be in that kind of area. And then we've got Zoster Mariner, which is the seagrass we're working with and planting, which is a bit deeper. It lives between that kind of, still can be intertidal, but down to about 7 meters in coastal sheltered waters. And it's thicker and can grow up to a couple of meters if it's really good and healthy with lots of light. But globally, it's not just these like blade-like seagrass that I keep talking about. You can also get seagrass that looks like, if you imagine clover leaves, so those kind of little round leaves, and lots of different structures, branched ones as well, and lots of variation.
How much seagrass is there? That's a really good question. How much seagrass do you think there is, Evie? I'm going to direct that at you.
That's a really difficult question, and one that we want to figure out, and all over the globe people are working to try and get a better estimate. But seagrass has only really come into the spotlight in the last 20 years or so. Before that, everything marine research based was very much looking at corals, which they're bright, they're colourful, they're exciting, and it's only recently that people have started to notice seagrass and realise how important this ecosystem is. So we're still, with all the research we're doing in the baby steps, we're still trying to figure out. So our restoration efforts, each time we plant at a new site or we do a new area, we're trying techniques to try and improve our planting, because there's so much to learn. And we think that we've learned one thing, and then seagrass will be like, no, you've still got even more to learn. So when it comes back around to how much seagrass there is, well, this is why we keep talking about Seagrass Spotter, because there's only me and Emma right here. It's really hard for us to go around all of the UK coastline and figure out where we have patches and pockets of seagrass and where we don't, let alone the whole globe. But it's something we're working on if you guys can help us.
Yeah. Maybe one last question, because I think we've only got a couple minutes and then we'll round up. But how do you plant seagrass, and do you need any specific tools? Well, just going back to what Evie was saying then about how every time we go out, we're doing something a little bit differently. That's currently what we're in the process of doing. So we're still trialing lots of different planting techniques. But I started in June, and the main one that I've been doing with Evie managing me and leading me is packing up these seeds into these little Hessian bags, brown bags. There's about 50 seeds per bag with some sand in there. And we're literally going out with a weight and dropping it in on the place that we want to plant our seagrass. We've been in wetsuits with our goggles on and a trowel, and we've literally dug a little hole into the sand and then put our little bag down and put a little spike into it that's also biodegradable. And for us, that is the technique that we've been using this summer. So it's really simple, but we are looking at making it sort of more mechanical. So there's current research trials looking into this sort of like a gun that is full of mud and sand, and also the seagrass seeds, where you can basically put the gun into the sand and then you'll be able to inject the seed in, and hopefully that will save some time and increase efficiency as well. And then even beyond that, they're looking at this sort of wheel on a machine which has got multiple of these sort of injection guns on. So as it spins, it will turn over and then shoot a seagrass seed into it, the soil or whatever you're planting it. So we're looking at making this more and more technical, but at the moment it is literally just like ocean gardening at the moment, which is crazy and bonkers, but it's awesome.
I think, yeah, for the UK, we've got to work a little bit harder because we've got these insane tides to deal with, and we've got shore crabs that just love to munch on our seeds. But if you look up Chesapeake Bay Restoration Project, they're doing amazing work out there and are really leading the way. They've mechanized how they collect seeds, so they've got like a combine harvester that can go out over the meadow collecting in seeds without damaging the meadow. But they're out there, they're able to just scatter seeds straight into the ocean, so they don't need to have the little biodegradable bags. They don't need the manpower of us going out and individually planting each bag. So watch this space.
So yeah, I think that's us. I hope you guys have enjoyed finding out about seagrass. This has been super interactive, so thank you so much for all of your questions. Like I say, look up Project Seagrass to find out some more if you want to get involved in Seagrass Spotter, and also voluntary opportunities will be arising in the future. So take a look out for that. And yeah, thank you so much, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you so much for